Hi everybody, I am starting to use Instagram a little bit more, so you're going to see me on Dove's account. I'm super excited. I did finally manage to finish my research for my PhD thesis, so I get to go on to something a little bit more fun. We are doing Texans in the media, so a lot of stuff has happened. We pushed out a lot of the Italians in Manhattan. If you're not familiar with it, Manhattan especially, but New York in general is an old Dutch trading center. So most of the TV that comes out of there follows the really old rules, the 2,000-year-old rules, where obviously we are all at least aware of the fact that Jesus was the first psychic warlord in history, recorded history. So the 8 archbishops, one of which we have, those are very much a moral compass still. Hollywood and the FCC, so by extension television, running off of the Presbyterian Church and the Catholic Church. A lot of the censorship goes through them. That's the law. So things to be aware of. We're doing Texans in the media. Obviously, I'm TV. I get to back off the cellular a little bit. I got to turn down an offer from Apple to keep track of fishbowl effects and placement of phones, given that we keep our phones 6 feet from ourselves, and do a little bit more of a West Coast theme. So I grabbed something that was extremely popular right before I moved out of New York, which was Supernatural, and they were studying upstate, so it was really cool. I grew up in a very nice neighborhood. I was Montessori, so I've always been a part of this, just organizationally. We all get in there and we do teams, stuff like that. So if you're not familiar, this is the first time we've run into it. Welcome, you're probably from the indie community. If you're not familiar with the rules, I actually always have a set of them laying around, because they apply to video games to a lesser degree. We don't have that zoned out yet, but we do not have the tradesmen in that we want to, and people are using sets and set crews by extension less and less and less. This is really important. We use the color guard, where people classify by colors first. So you tend to see teams. We recently ran into this with increased trade with England. Obviously, we went to war together, and then there was the Markle marriage. Turns out Prince Henry and I think it's Dame Judi Dench are raging D&D nerds, so that hit the fantasy scene in a big way. So we tend to do teams. It's best to study something in pairs, just so that you're able to talk about it when it doesn't have tradesmen. Like, our sets are haunted. It's to the point where streaming is picking up anything to do with Asian ghosts, so we don't know what's going on there. But a couple cool things. So you go into a TV show, we're doing Supernatural. It's got a couple Texans in it, so we can study the effects of what I think Rapunzel in the most recent Disney release called the mumbling. Or no, it was her mother, Mother Gothel. Oh my god, my hair. I swear I can't get the Insta girl. I've got to go back to a hairstylist. So, Supernatural has a West Coast theme. That's composite words, trade, and diagraphs. They use a couple of keywords that were really interesting, and then they also use numbers, so there's going to be some sort of trackable influence. I obviously have a key that I'm working with, which I thought I brought out here. Oh, I did. So, the thing to know about any Dutch trading settlement is we have the bands and the bonds. So what I did is I grabbed an old index from when we first found out that Ruby Red could trade very strange microtransactions that created its own kind of gossip, risk, and also, things that you would talk about in places that you weren't talking about them just because tradesmen were involved. Circle back around to tradesmen. So simple infractions, the church law by the poor. Tribal interactions, the dichotomy it offers. That's an interesting one because that's going to be your compasses. So map makers, we love pirates. Love pirates. And all down the coastline, we're like that. Ruby red, yellow brick, and then lily white, obviously being Scotland Yard, and they're originally quote-unquote pure numbers because they get checked by Nick and Nick Jr., which is Canada, and their partner Norway. Ruby red obviously terminates up near Norway, and then yellow brick terminates near France. So, and then you have your subsets of technology and architecture. And I loved picking up Texans in the media. I decided to do this one, even though I can't understand the older crowd, the one that I grew up with, I thought I would be able to pick up when they were making a deal. And I'm having a hard time hearing their accent. So if you do know anything about that, hit me up. But right here we have the subsets that we use, one of which is walking, the under part. But then we did move into driving. So there's this middle portion that stays inside while they bake you a cake as fast as they can. and that's communication and calculation. Then you have geography, cultural evolution, bargaining, etc. lies in kinship, and then it goes all the way down into Maslow and how we calculate it now, because obviously we're big about manifesting. We're into that. So this is an old TV, like, where you can actually use a computer to calculate this. So this is how fast we're doing this. If it's any of my old friends in Wall Street, just as an aside, I did part ways finally with Bethesda. I am still handling the feminine parts of my dad's church, but anything to do with that, it has been sold to Microsoft, in case you missed it. Some of you are retired. So that does go to Microsoft or to Bethesda now, and then any of the church gossip or anything like that, that goes to me, because I do still handle that, so it doesn't get in the way for the family. A lot of cool things that we pull out of numbers like that, out of really fast gossip. The Dane to French exchange, which is the underlying theme in Lord of the Rings, believe it or not, is one of the things that we get involved with in New York. So we like to make sure that the right confessions go to the right place, but everybody likes to be talked about a certain way. So if for some reason you're not a member of the elite, and you know that no archbishop will ever even smell your numbers, we do pray to all of them. So I use coffee, and you can contact me if you have any questions about how the color guard works, the difference between that and, for instance, highlighters when Manhattan is figuring out what's going to go into the next episode of a script. If they're writing it that way, they're doing a lot of batch drops. So the next season, we do follow a formula. This is the mathematic part, but then we also do, I know I wrote it down, I don't know if I'll be able to show it to you, because it's a crib note. We do by seasons. So it's really important to us to evolve our actors. New York loves her actors. So whether you're from somewhere else or whether you're, visiting, staying with us, I did write it down, look at me. I got up to season 4 so far. I'm trying to make it so we're legible here. I'll just read it off, it's fine. Okay, so that's how you can see it. Season 1, we tend to have a focal point. So it's very frequently at sets, because then we can get the whole crew working on it together. And like I said, we do like to get our tradesmen involved. We just aren't there yet, where we put things into plain words for people and feel like we can keep up with that. So that's when you run into the concept of church want-ads in Supernatural, which is where you resolve unresolved issues that a priest can't handle in death, and they dress them up in the costumes while they do that. That moves into their motel themes, which is central sets, and then naturally into MCs in season 3. That is when the first one is population control. So you don't want people to riot when you watch your TV show. This was a really big focus back when I was online and first, exploring how fast that moved. Because we were starting to get bank transactions that caused, a certain amount of gossip from Brazil. Jumping Jack Flash came out around that time. Season 3, you run into drug dealers. So you don't want to upset someone's work-life balance, and people walk home, they take the bus. So you don't want to get in the way of aldermen. And that's just politics, it's business politics. And we instead of introducing our actors to these concepts, what we do is we just coach them through it. So the scripts do mold themselves around the actors, but we ask you not to approach them. Don't approach us, don't approach them. You can go to kofi.com/what to play next if you want to drop me a direct message. I also have posts that I put on there that you can comment on. I'm part of the indie community still. So I do get very involved there. You can direct message me. If you want to buy a coffee and donate, it's $1. We send messages all the way around the globe now, so we are sending them west back around to east. And coffee is a big way that we do that. So New Yorkers are a huge proponent of buying someone a coffee if you do want to have that sort of attention. And it's a cool way to do it. It stops at Turkey. They prepare things a different way. So no matter how you prepare your coffee, you can certainly talk to me there. There's also a link in Duff Knowles' Instagram account, which will put you through to my YouTube. I did receive the Apple request to take a look at Fishbowl, and I'm good with audio because I have a radio voice, so I'm doing that. If my picture is not in the corner, that's probably what I'm doing, because I do still do random jobs. If my picture is in the corner, we're exploring indie and gaming in general and finding you a video game that you love. So we do gaming culture. It's a giant focus, obviously. This plays out like Tantaffel. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. So this is very focused on your method of transportation. We love Texans for that because they love cars. So season 4, you fill in the plot holes. So you do tend to see, struggles with drugs. Again, we ask you not to approach actors or us. Whatever sort of, whether it's a combat wound or whether it's, because we have Cold Wars, and so like sometimes our families get hurt and we just don't want to talk to you about it in the upper class. So I use we loosely. I just wander in and out of their stuff. But yeah, so, if you do see a drug theme, that doesn't mean an actor is doing drugs. Do not approach them about that. But it is something that we deal with in cities. We do deal with politicians and media as it is suspended in a media. So the message is that suspended in a media stays there for a certain amount of time and it comes back to us from other countries. It's part of what makes America powerful. So we do have to do this. Just coach our actors through it. And we don't tell them that we're doing it, we adapt the scripts to their personality. So very important. Season 5, now I end up dealing with Vice. Most of you know that from Miami Vice, but Vice is a part of the cops that deal with gangs, etc., where you have to go in and you have to do certain things, and it helps control the city. You never believe that you can completely eliminate crime, not if you're from a big enough city, and New York is the largest. So, made a game key. So this is fun. So the place, since we focus cars, we love doing that. Like I said, I think airplanes were a lot of other previous Texan coding, but I don't know. So we focus cars here. Obviously, they have the Impala baby, which I love. So we have the place. We're focusing on numbers, so license plates, and the numeral counts. Okay, so whether or not null is a placeholder. If you're not big into math, I'll skip it in a second. What I mentioned previously about colors and aldermen and everything comes together here, because in the first scene, if you do get to watch the pilot, they bring in a brotherhood, which is the firemen, and they have a coat of arms on there. So that's the sort of thing that you want to get out of the way and not have to think about while you're enjoying a TV show, even if you're playing one of the New York games with it. So we start out with all the numbers on the clock. We have vehicles. We have the place. And then we have a little bit of math that you can do if you're a math nerd, a mathlete. And we have a lot of them that we work with. We work with Mensa. And then we get into chapters, which is your Greek letters. So that's where your demons come in. So demons are attached to quadrants, it looks like, which is a really great storyline. It makes for a lot of really exciting interactions. You have yellow-eyed demons, which look like California, black-eyed demons, which look like they're from Texas. Even though they identify, for instance, as ruby red, it looks like the ruby red as Texas understands it. It's not our ruby red. We generally don't rate ourselves in. So we'll do white eyes as the north. We usually mean Scotland Yard, which is New England. That's east of New York. And then New York City if you choose to handle them. But then New York tends to remain neutral to New York. So white eyes are the north and red eyes are the south. Pretty obviously, based on the type of gossip that they're handling. You can get written out where you will actually alienate the people that you want to confess to, or that you want to handle your gossip, or that you want to make headlines with. And you should know that. That's your demon that took you out. And then you can redeem yourself with these. And then it looks like they did the fifth estate, which America has, because we're an island empire, as green eyes, because both main characters have green eyes. That could also be New York, if you're just counting for New York. It's whoever the fifth estate is to America divides itself that way, where we have the neutral party at all times, and that's just how we run our empire. It's largely a military empire. Most of us don't get involved. We're also watching out for things like we ran into a red dumpster in the shape changer, and it was interesting because it seemed to be some sort of commentary on the negative things on negging when it comes to picking up women or keeping them. So that's a fun one. We have a lot of problems with that. We ran into it real recently with the black races, where they were also called your grace. We had to go out and explain what your grace was in Europe, which is royal title, so it's hereditary holiness, versus if you do work in the church. Black graces versus white graces wasn't anything we wanted to get into, so skip, but that was there. And then we have some interesting foreign relations that came to the fore there. People who work with the British Empire during war, like with the recent Middle Eastern war, tend to go through Australia afterwards, just to kind of even out things with their personal demons, not to overuse the word. So we had with the coordinates that they received, Georgia, and Australia. So that's double, which is 3 and a 9. I usually use SMAS at that point, because you'll tend to run into Russia and Japan as China's secretaries. versus when there's in the bottom right where we total, if we're totaling out into the city, there's no meme or siestri, which is a younger sister. And I just used the old Polish declension for that. So blood on the telephone pole indicates the red dumpster has something to do with it, and then it would fall out this way, and I would eventually have a four-color answer this way. Which is hard to understand if you did not play with paint when you were little. But so that's what we're doing. And then I'll eventually put together a study, which I just randomly turn in. It's just a thing that I do. I found like bookies numbers when they were using A-frame, hectare-frame, etc. So, interesting things if you do want to pop over to the channel. Really fun. Like, there was a faux Venetian mask, so that's going to come up later, and that we're able to track the character's evolution. You know, that write out what the actors are doing. It looks so far like one of them grew up in apartments in a larger city, and the other one was in either a flat or some sort. Bobby looks like he might be from a smaller city, but I'm guessing that just means that he was from the flatter part of a city. So we write that out, because like I said, we ask you not to approach the actors, and then you just take their character from there into account, because they're going to have certain reactions. What we're really interested in is how their body language is interacting. So you accept that somebody who grew up in an apartment, like I grew up in a flat, so to me the differences are between that and an apartment building is that your families are more involved. So my family is very separate, and then you would see like family numbers go off to the left more frequently. Like I would never put my dad behind me and to my left. I just wouldn't do that. So interesting stuff. So you write that out. You just accept that that's part of the character's story, that they're the oldest, and that's when you do that, and just fill that in, and you'll see what's going to happen in the next episode, the next season, and so on, and you can play a little game while you do it. So I just figured that I would pop in to see if I could get some of you more over onto my Instagram. I am done with my studies, so I'll be able to post some more personal stuff here. We love you guys. We love that you're always along for it. If you haven't already subscribed, pop on over to my YouTube channel and sub there. I get to host a lot of videos, and like I said, mostly we're focused on finding you the games that you love. I did take an injury. I'm supposed to be wearing a sling, so I am a little bit more doing studies, etc. But we will fall back out of that and have more fun, and it'll pop you up a little thumbnail. So if you don't feel like doing a study, just check and see if my picture's there. Talk to you guys soon. Hit me up. You can hit show more and hit me up on my Twitter, etc. too.